Good evening, chaps.
Good evening.
How are you doing, Andy? Okay, you all right, Joe?
Yeah, all good.
Very good, thank you.
Stuff. Any news on this hot weeknight?
Oh, isn't it warm? Isn't it warm?
I got some big news. My wheels are on. Check that out.
Yeah, quality. Give us the inside story on that then. There's no way they fitted straight out the box.
Well, by some miracle, in short, yes, they did.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I mean, so I borrowed Andy's jack and spent a fair bit of time taking wheels on and off, back on and off again. I think I did that at least 2 or 3 rounds of that, measuring stuff. And yeah, I was pretty convinced they weren't going to quite fit and I'd need to get some different tyre sizes and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, somebody said to me, actually, why don't you just put the tyres that are on your old wheels on your new wheels? Even though they're considerably bigger, the sizes will still work. You just have a slightly different, sort of sidewall curve on it. So I thought, actually, as a test fit, let's give it a go. And they've gone straight on. So, yeah, all that drama, and it was a quick fit.
Just looking at the pictures that you've sent through now, Joe, I think that looks absolutely awesome. I really do. It's got real like cafe racer look to it now with a big sidewall on the tyres.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I'm pleased with the way the back's sitting and the way that looks in the arch. The front is definitely a little bit off-road at the moment, so I'm going to have to play with that. But it's relatively funny, easy on those. You can sort of wind them down quite straightforward.
Because when I saw your car earlier today, obviously it was still on your old wheels, it looked low.
Yeah, I know.
Why does it look high?
I've no idea. It's definitely it looks like it's gone up about 3 inches at the front, which it definitely hasn't. But it's an optical illusion somewhere.
It's just that it's like your brain is programmed, like, because it's the norm. You see it all the time, whether it's a 912 or a 911 with like the factory Fouche wheels. It just kind of looks right, doesn't it? Or any kind of standard wheel. I had exactly the same on the GT3 style wheels. Same ride height, car looked okay. Put different wheels on, the car looks completely wrong. It looks like I'm driving around in a Safari 911, you know? It's weird. It's so weird. The height has not changed. But I think what we'll do, Joe, if you're cool, is we'll put some pictures of that because it looks amazing, your 912. We'll put it on the Road to Redline Instagram so everyone can see the new setup.
Yeah, good shout, definitely. And good to get some feedback. I mean, I was a little bit undecided when they first went on because obviously they are grey with a painted silver lip and then sort of blacked out around the sides. And I didn't know how I'm not 100% on the colour against the sort of the white, but it's growing on me. So I think I need to run it for a bit and see how it sits.
Yeah, feedback welcome.
Brake dust on them.
Oh yeah, no, I'm happy. I'm happy to take some objective comments as well. Yeah, a bit of constructive criticism.
Be careful, it is the internet.
Yeah, that's true. Open the floodgates.
Yeah,
but I did pop round to a friend of mine. It's got a little paint shop around the corner from the wheel place because there's a couple of little jobs that I just need to get done at some point. And across the way from there is a chap that does some trimming, and one of my little poppers, my back seats popped off. And I need to get a little strap made up. Anyway, long story short, that little strap and popper that I popped in for it sounds like it might have turned into a bit of sort of houndstooth sort of seat work on the front there. So there might be a bit of a new plan in there. So that's kind of come about now, which was not the intention.
These little things grow, don't they?
But yeah, I mean, he was laughing because it was literally said you came in for a popper and a strap, and you've almost booked in a full retrim, which I haven't. But not far off.
And that is the downward slope, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. When it's all, if you just stick to not playing with them, then it's easy, isn't it? But once you start, it's dangerous.
It's very easy to get very carried away very quickly, isn't it? I'm sure all of us have ended up with a shell on the driveway when you originally just thought, I'll just do this little bit, and then you get, I'll do this and I'll do this, and oh shit, there's nothing left of the car.
Next thing you know, you've got a full lift in your garage.
Yeah. Well, that's actually happened today. My birthday present arrived today, so I've been assembling that in the garage, and the car's off the ground.
So what does that mean then, Andy? Does that just mean you're going to be polishing your multi-link suspension for the next couple of weeks, or what's the story?
I got lots of plans, lots of suspension plans, but I think that's going to be next winter. I was going to do it this winter, just gone, but it didn't happen for various reasons. So next winter is the plan for all of that. So yeah, the lift will be very handy for that. Yeah, it's cool. Come on round and do something on yours if you want to.
Sounds awesome.
I was quite impressed you said about how high you said it can lift. That's what I was surprised about.
Yeah, it can go up a metre, which is a bit too high for my garage. My garage is underneath our lounge, so it's not a particularly high garage. So I can only lift the car about 750, 800. So I could punch the roof of the 911 through the lounge roof if I got a bit carried away. So I have to be a little bit careful when lifting it up. But yeah, it's a metre high is more than enough to, get the wheels are then at chest height, so it's easy to work on the car.
Yes, enough room to get your ego underneath the 993, isn't it, Andy? Awesome stuff. Well, look, good updates on both your cars. Shall we get a guest on?
Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. This week's guest is, it's an interesting topic. It is and it isn't. It's insurance. Insurance, as we've said before, is a bit of a grudge
necessary.
Purchase. It is, yeah, it's a necessary evil. It's a grudge purchase. But it is necessary, isn't it, ultimately? We've managed to have a chat with David Hamer, who's he heads up operations at Lockton Performance, a prestige insurance brand. There's a load of insight here into the insurance industry, how it works, how you can get the most from it. And there's some quirky anecdotes in there and also some funnies from a few clangers that have happened, isn't there? So we promise it's a really interesting conversation. Here's what he had to say. David from Lockton, thanks very much for joining us.
Nice to be here.
To start with then, straight in at the top, what impact has COVID-19 had on the prestige car market in the last sort of 6 weeks, David, particularly with reference to an insurance point of view?
Okay, so what we're actually seeing is a lot of people have sawn their vehicles. Some of the big collectors have sawn their vehicles, which is absolutely fine. Nobody wants to pay more tax than they have to. But one of the issues that's springing up is where people are sawing their vehicles, and the government quite rightly moved quickly to sort out the MOT situation. But of course, people then come to us and want to buy just laid up cover, which is a very restrictive form of insurance cover. Effectively, at worst, you've just got fire and theft cover. You've got no liability cover or any damage to your vehicle unless it's caused through fire and theft. And so we've been quite nervous about people wishing to buy just laid up cover, because these are quite valuable assets and they need to be protected properly. So our recommendation to our customers is most of our clients are on a limited mileage type of policy, is to reduce your mileage right down to say 500 miles, which is the minimum, but keeping full cover on your car. The real sort of problem can occur is if you've just got laid up cover and you want to go and get an MOT on your vehicle, what we're nervous about is people forgetting that they've only got laid up cover, going onto the road, they've got no third party liability cover. In effect, they're breaking the law by driving their vehicle on the road. Although you're allowed to take your vehicle to an MOT station for a pre-agreed MOT, but of course, if you haven't got the insurance cover in place, third-party liability is a minimum, then you're breaking the law. You can get pinged by the police and get prosecuted, and at worst, you could end up having an accident and being uninsured. So, our recommendation to our customers is to just reduce their cover down to 500 miles, because that will give them the sort of saving that they're looking for. So that's one of the big things that's going on. I guess the other thing that we're seeing is a dramatic reduction in the number of claims that are coming through. I think since the beginning of lockdown, we insure about 7,500 odd customers. We've had 10 claims, which is just unheard of.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have any of those been sort of home claims where somebody's done something daft and you've driven it into the garage door and that sort of thing?
No, there's been nothing like that. Well, we did have a Ferrari that caught light, which was to do with the injectors. It was an older car that, the sealant around the injectors, if you leave them too long, can get a bit stiff, and it spewed petrol all over it.
Is that the insurer's responsibility, or is that down to sort of maintenance of the car? I mean, where does the insurance company sit on that?
It's it isn't as a result of poor maintenance. The insured would not know that the injectors there was a problem with them. He's just gone out for a nice drive, and all of a sudden he's got lots of smoke and flames.
Gosh.
So that car's being repaired as we speak, and is going to cost £25,000-30,000 to put right.
That's an expensive essential run to the shops, isn't it?
Ferraris tend to be expensive.
Yeah.
True.
Absolutely savage.
Lucky he had his full insurance running then.
Insurance companies making very little noise at the moment. I think there's a few people that have come out and done some sort of marketing type stuff. I think Admiral said they give £20 or £25 back to every customer. I think LV have come out, but these are guys who are just running, their volume insurers, and it's more of an advertising come marketing ploy rather than recognising that their customers aren't really using their cars.
Yeah.
So
just to intervene there, I'm always curious. Like, is there a drastic difference in the cover between one of the big sort of supermarket chains like you talked about there and coming to a specialist like yourselves? Because I've always wondered what the actual in layman's terms kind of advantage is by coming to more of a specialist.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I'd say is that you actually got people that understand and know about these types of cars. So we employ people who are petrol heads. We've got guys who are racing. We would only employ people who have some sort of empathy to the car world, the classic car and the hypercar world. So that's the first thing that happens. But if you get down to the actual policy wordings, so the sort of things that we would give people get agreed values on their vehicles. So I mean, most of the people we insure will have agreed values, which is a relatively simple thing to do. We don't require some sort of, intensive review of the vehicle. If somebody's looking after the vehicle and is prepared to send us an email with their opinion of value, we will take that. Obviously, if it's a new car, then it's invoice value, or if it's come out of an auction. And we do get values where you do get cars where, new cars that will be sold at a premium. So they may go above list price, and we will happily insure those cars. So agreed value is one of the big things that you won't get with a general insurer. We will let people drive their cars. Anybody can come. If we insure somebody, anybody over 35 can come and insure and drive your car and be insured fully comprehensive under your policy. And you can go and drive anybody else's car and be fully insured on a comprehensive basis. The general insurer will only give you third-party liability cover. We're giving
I didn't realise that.
Damage cover, which is sort of unusual.
Is that across all of the sort of specialist car insurers? Do they all do that, or is that just yourselves?
No, you can you can negotiate with some of these guys to get that sort of cover. They're reluctant to give it. We just recognise that the people we insure, are sensible people. They're not going to let people drive their cars who are going to, be silly with them. And similarly, if they're driving, a friend's car, they don't want the embarrassment of having an accident in their friend's car or the financial consequences of it. So, we will, we just recognise that the people we insure are sensible. There's all sorts of other things that we can do. Some standard sort of stuff. If you have a vehicle that is looked after by a particular individual, and you have an accident, you can send it back to those people and get the repair done. We don't dictate where the car should be repaired. which is quite interesting when you get some of things like singers. You want it to go to somebody who understands. You don't want it in a general repair shop. Yeah. So there's lots of other great things that we do, and if people are really interested in looking at it in depth, then they can go onto our website, Lockton Performance, and there's a whole list of them there. But the big ones are around driving other people's cars and you driving and other people driving your cars. So
I think that's massive as well, isn't it? Because the whole kind of point of the enthusiast community, if you're at Cars and Coffee, you turn up, you see your mates, like we're all going to get together on Sunday, aren't we, and go for our first permitted drive. And, someone might bring along a new car, and the whole point of the passion is sharing it with other people in it. And some people say, oh, how does it drive? And then others return by saying, well, jump in, find out, take it down the road and back, let me know what you think, providing you trust them. And that's a massive part of our enthusiast community, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. That's such
definitely
an advantage. I didn't know that was possible. I always thought
that'd be worth third party. Yeah, it's worth an extra premium for that alone, I think.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we never set out to be the cheapest. What we set out to be is competitively priced for an absolutely top of the range product that's geared for enthusiasts. So the other thing that we will do, which is always people get quite excited about, we'll insure people going on track at track days, and that's pretty unusual. So if you're a member of a car club, so Porsche Club GB, if you're attending a Porsche Club track day, then we will insure your car for damage on track, subject to a sort of 10% excess, which I think is pretty standard in that sort of market. We'll also give you a couple of £1 million worth of third-party liability cover. So if you damage or injure somebody and they sue you, then you've got some third-party liability cover, and we actually don't charge for it. All we do is make certain that the individuals that we're insuring have been on a track before and are safe. We're not worried how fast they drive. We just want to make sure that they're safe. And there's a little process to go through to get that sort of cover. But
has anyone ever claimed on that third-party liability cover where they've hit someone else or or injured someone else? I suppose even worse. But has anyone ever actually claimed on that you know of? Is that because there's a gentleman's rule that kind of what happens on track, and everyone sort of has to pick up their own bills. But do some people take it further?
Yeah, there was one, and I can't remember the insurance company involved, but it was a case probably 10, 12 years ago, and an individual sued another individual on track, and the insurance company paid out. But that's a really old case, and now I don't think there's anybody out there that's insuring third-party liability on track. I mean, I've been doing this stuff for sort of over 12 years now, and we've never had a third-party liability claim. We get some damage claims, and they can be quite exciting. And the sad thing is that sometimes people get a bit over enthusiastic, and we end up with people that smash their cars up and they're uninsured. So we'll only insure specific individuals, normally just the policyholder. But the scenario, we've had one about 18 months ago. We insured the car to go on track. And we insured the policyholder to drive his car on track, no problems with all of that. But he was with his brother-in-law at a circuit. They managed to sign the brother-in-law on. The brother-in-law jumped into the car that he'd never driven, not even on the road. The red mist came up. He got over-enthusiastic with not too much talent and rode off a £70,000 Porsche, which was uninsured, which is really sad because, had the insured come to us and told us what he was going to do, we probably could have found a way of insuring him. So it's really important if people are going to take their cars on track to talk to their insurance broker and see whether they can get cover or not. Specialists like Lockton, it's a regular thing. Lots of our clients take their cars on tracks, so we know how to deal with them.
That's a bad day at the office, isn't it? If you end up being uninsured on track and it's total loss, that's it's not a fun day out.
No, and it's avoidable. That's the thing. When things go wrong and you look back with hindsight, if people just pick the phone up to their insurance broker, have a conversation with them, and then if they're good brokers giving you good advice, these things can normally be worked through. Interesting things around charity days, people giving rides to young children, those sorts of things. You have to be really careful. It's all done with the best intention, but if something goes wrong, then it can just be sad for everybody involved.
You're saying you've been with Lockton's 12 years now. I was just wondering, what's your personal story at Lockton's, and how did you become involved in Lockton's? Or maybe what did you do before?
Well, I've done lots of things. I've always worked in sales. I've always been in the insurance industry. I've been in the insurance industry 40 odd years. I ended up, I've run my own businesses. I had 2 businesses that I run. One was successful and is still going, and one crashed and burnt, which, that's life, isn't it, when you're starting businesses? I ended up, a great mate of mine, Mike Hammond, who was the chairman of Lockton, lived down the road and basically said to me, come and work for me. And so I ended up going to work for Lockton, but very quickly saw that we had an affinity scheme with the Aston Martin Owners Club, and we insured a few Aston Martins. And somebody said to me, have a look at this. Well, in that 12 years, we've now gone and put schemes together for, the original scheme was the Aston Martin Owners Club. The second one was Ferrari Owners Club. Third one, Porsche Club GB, Lamborghini, Maserati, Bentley, Jaguar.
So when you started, was it more of a general kind of insurance company, and you turned it more into this sort of specialist, or have I read that incorrectly?
No, the product that we had was better than a standard motor policy, standard comprehensive motor policy. But what we've done over the years is to develop the product so that it really fits the sort of customer group that want to use it. So if some price is always important, and we will never get price off of the top 3 things that a customer's interested in, but it shouldn't be the only criteria. And I always say to people, if they come to us and they want us to quote, if all you want is the cheapest quote, then you probably don't come and talk to us, because we won't be the cheapest. But when things go wrong, or you've got difficult situations, then we know how to fix them and to give you the right cover. So
it's always such a difficult decision to make, I find, when I'm choosing my insurance policy. It's like, it's kind of almost finger in the wind, because you're kind of like, are these guys going to treat me right if it all goes wrong? Is the price good? It really is always feels like a bit of a guessing game.
And that's the thing, because you won't know, Andy, will you? Until it goes wrong. That's the thing. You could have a year relationship with somebody where you've paid up for the year, then 12 months later you might get an email saying, do you want to renew? And you're kind of like, well, I don't know if it's if the company in question is a good or a bad one, because you've not need to use them yet,
Yeah, very difficult.
The problem with insurance is you only find out if you've got a good product when you've had that dreadful thing, the accident. And that's what we try and do, is to try and educate and get across to our clients and our prospects that it's vital that if people have got their pride and joys. These are cars that perhaps people have spent many years saving to buy. It needs to be insured properly. We attend lots and lots of events, so I will go to lots of car club events and talk to customers and explain to them the difference between buying a general comprehensive motor policy in the high volume market versus going to a specialist. And there are other specialists out there. They're not as good as Lockton, but there's other specialists out there. So,
there's I'll kind of vindicate that, because just in terms of like contact as well, cards on the table. I am insured through Lockton's with the 911, and like say the daily car, for example, which is with just like a supermarket chain, if you will. Every time you want to chat to them, you just think, I've got to be put on hold for about 20 minutes, go through, so the rigmarole of the phone call, all of that sort of stuff. But chat to someone that doesn't know what day of the week it is, let alone what my policy's saying, sort of thing. Whereas, like, what I love about my current policy on the 911 is, if I want to do a track day, it's an email away, and I email the same handler who I've had at Lockton for a couple of years now, and there's like a personal relationship built up there, and I can say, hi X, Porsche Club track day at Castle Combe this Wednesday, I'm in, is that okay? I'll get like a confirmation email back, and kind of that's it, and then when it comes to renew, it's a case of, well, they know me, they know where I live, they know all about the car, etc. Nothing's changed, has it? And I can say yes, no, and that's it. And there was a point, David, that you touched on earlier on with regards to you guys, like you and your staff, being like genuine enthusiasts. I don't know if it's a story that you want to share about my handler, if you like, and the lovely story he had with his friend in a car. I don't know if you want to say that or not.
Yeah, one of our guys, he had a pal who unfortunately was terminally ill, and these are young guys. These are sort of guys in their sort of early 30s. The guy knew that he was terminally ill, and made his will, and he had some money, and his two best pals, he left £30,000 to each of his best pals, but on the proviso that they went out and bought a car with it, and our guy went out and bought himself a nice DB9 with his £30,000.
How cool is that?
Run it, but he's got it in the garage. But it's just. And they're the sort of people. We've got guys who are racing and rallying. They're the sort of people that we want to employ because, as Lee said, they've got the empathy with our customers. And that's important. We don't run a call centre. That sort of environment is a complete anathema to us. We want to have all of our customers with somebody that they know. That they can pick the phone up to, okay, 7,000 odd customers, it's difficult, but and sometimes we have to move people around. That's inevitable in a business. But I go to probably 25 events in a year, whether it's race meetings, whether it's concours. I'm not doing any of that at the moment, and you get to meet a lot of people over sort of 12 years, and you get known to people. So. I get people ringing me up all the time, and they're like my best pal, and I'm trying to put a face to the name that I've just received. And it's because we go to events, we go and talk to people, which a lot of our competitors don't do.
So David, where's your personal interest sit with cars? Are you in the mix as well? Is there is there something that you're particularly into? Have you got a dark secret there, or where do you sit with that?
I've always had an interest in cars. My father took me to Brands Hatch when I was 5, which is quite a few years ago. And I've always lived just down the road from Brands Hatch. It's my local circuit. I've always had an interest in motorsport and nice cars. I have nothing in the garage, so I've got nothing exciting to share with you. I drive a 5 Series BMW with 187,000 miles on the clock. And I keep thinking I've got to get rid of this and go and buy myself a Porsche, but I just can't get down to it. So, it's on the list to do. The other thing is that I get to do great things through whether it's going to the Porsche Experience Centre, whether it's going to race days, track days. I get to do things that money can't buy. I get to go to the BRDC Clubhouse, sit there, watch the Grand Prix. These are great things. So I get my adrenaline fix without perhaps the cost, I guess.
Are you drawn to one mark over the other, or are you fairly generic with them all?
Well, it all depends who I'm talking to, of course. And it's got to be a Porsche, isn't it? It's genuinely, if you look at ownership of some of these cars is can be difficult. Astons, Ferraris can be difficult to own, whereas a Porsche is a very easy car to own. I keep saying to myself, this summer is when I'm going to go out and buy myself something. I was talking to Lee about it, so when the time's right, I'm sure I'll be advised well by you guys as to what I should buy and where I should go and buy it. So
I reckon now's a great time. Yeah, there's lots of people that will be wanting to get out of cars at the moment. So I reckon there's no time like the present.
Yeah.
Not one incoming.
Yeah.
David, I mean, you touched on it there, but where you guys look after like Porsche, but then other like prestige brands as well, what's the big difference between them all?
Okay, so I guess it's in the clubs. So I always say Ferrari organise a great party. They have great parties. Their gala dinner, they have a super party. They really enjoy themselves. And those guys, are very sociable individuals. Aston's, their club organise great concours. If you want to see a concours and a show, then go to an Aston one. There's a guy there who's heavily involved, Mark Donoghue, who just really knows how to put on a concours. Porsche Club GB, I think, is the most commercial of all the car clubs. When I look at what's going on at the moment, some of the car clubs aren't doing a great deal for their membership. When I look at PCGB, they're really active in getting things out to the car clubs. Whether I think I hosted a virtual meeting for them 2 or 3 weeks ago, all on Zoom, 60, 70 odd members. They've got this virtual meeting thing going on at the moment. So I think that they've really thrown themselves into supporting their membership during lockdown.
I think they've really modernised over the last few years. Their whole take on being a club has definitely changed from what I've seen. I mean, I looked at joining the club many years ago when I was looking at buying something in the past, and it seemed very old school. And then when I've come back to it this time, it's like, wow, this is actually, they're doing lots of up-to-date stuff rather than just the same old things.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I'm quite close to the club, so I can see how quickly or how much it's changed, and it changed really when Nick Hine was chairman there. He made a lot of changes and sort of dragged the club up by its bootlaces, really. I mean, when I got involved with the club, which is 6 years ago, it was about 11,000 members and in decline, reducing. Yeah. I think the club now is 22,000 and increasing.
It's a big difference, isn't it, Christ?
Yeah, I mean, in 6 years, that's astronomical. But that brings its problems. They can't. They used to have their sort of barbecue at Cornbury House. Yeah. Well, you can't do that now because there's so many people turn up. They just can't fit them all in. So the success also brings with it issues around hosting events, which of course nobody's hosting any events at the moment. But racing's coming back, isn't it, guys? We've got F1 coming back. We've got the British Grand Prix. I think motorsport starts next weekend. I think Snetterton's got some racing on. So
some of the tracks are open already, aren't they? There's some track days,
quite a few track days coming. Yeah. Talking of sort of track days, well, and I guess other things as well. So, have you got any sort of standout stories from your career in the insurance industry of people that have maybe had accidents on the tracks or on the roads or some good stories of craziness going on?
What's the biggest clanger? What's the biggest clanger?
What's the biggest clanger? So we insured a LaFerrari. That was quite exciting. The individual lost control of it down the A40 and sideswiped the Armco. And if you looked at photographs of it, there was a bit of damage on the side. but you wouldn't have said it was significant. Well, that car got lifted, taken to Maranello, spent about 6 months out there, and the bill was about €700,000.
Ouch!
That's a ridiculous bill, surely.
Yeah, and there's some nice little anecdotal stories. So under the front wing, you've got a dust cover, a dust cover under the front wing of any car. Well, on a LaFerrari, it's carbon fibre. It's held on with 3 lugs at the front, and one of the lugs had just sort of split slightly. It's not structural, it's not visible, it's not cosmetic. Ferrari wouldn't allow that to be repaired. You can repair carbon fibre, that's not an issue. The actual cost of that new dust cover under that front wing was €30,000.
No way! Oh,
they know how to charge.
Yeah, wowzers!
Is that the biggest repair bill you ever had at €700,000?
Yeah, 700,000 is the largest single damage claim we've had. There's been bigger claims. I mean, I think it was well documented. Rowan Atkinson smashed up a McLaren, and it was £1 million claim a few years back now. I think that was with Aviva. So, these claims occasionally occur. We're really lucky, and I guess it's because of the sort of people we insure. We don't tend to see those really big claims. Yeah, when you knock a corner off a Ferrari or an Aston, it's expensive. But fortunately, most people are pretty careful. So we get the odd large claim, but the LaFerrari was. We had a lovely email from the owner of the car, and this is where I guess you see the benefit of coming to a specialist. And I paraphrase now, but he said, I really can't believe the service that I've received. I've only made 2 phone calls to get this car repaired. One was to tell you that I'd had the accident and where to pick the car up, and the second one was to respond to a voicemail message asking him where he wanted the car delivered, and we had it delivered back to his villa in Spain. So he was updated on progress all the way through, but in terms of having to chase or do anything, 2 phone calls, and you've got a £700,000 claim and a LaFerrari that's put back as it should be after a relatively minor accident with a disproportionate amount of cost.
Wow.
Yeah, that's mad.
We've had some interesting ones on track. So we had a Ferrari, a 360, lost control on the Craner curves at Donington.
There's a pattern here, isn't there, with Ferraris?
Yeah. Well, particularly 360s. 360s, are quite an aggressive car.
Yeah, they're known for doing them.
We had it was the height of the financial bubble. So all the city boys, all the city traders, they'd get their bonus, and it was at the time when you could go and buy a 360 for 60, 70, 75,000 pounds. So these boys would all go out and they bought their 360, and you could see it on the claims reports we were getting through. Lost control, hit parked car, and these guys were just going around roundabouts, giving it a great bootful and flying off the edge of the road and hitting things. They were all in the financial markets. They were all buying 360s, and they were all relatively young guys, so probably mid-30s, that sort of age. So we had to do a bit of corrective action. But yeah, 360s were aggressive. We unfortunately had a DB5 that was quite a sad case that we repaired. We insured it. It was a guy at Silverstone, and he was enjoying himself. And around the back of the circuit came across a rain shower that he didn't know about, and obviously lost control and managed to park his car against the Armco. So that was repaired, and he was deliriously happy. So,
is there a common theme of make or model that other than the 360s that you consistently see coming through the door?
Well, no, 360s was the only one that we really had a problem with in the 12 years that I've been involved. That was the only model that and I think it was a combination of price, the type of car, and the type of individuals that were buying those cars at the time. We're always really conscious of looking at who we're insuring. We're not too worried about the car. It's who's driving it, because believe it or not, cars don't have accidents. People have accidents.
Very true.
We're very, very conscious of looking at the people we insure to make certain that they fit the underwriting footprint that we want. And of course, car clubs tend to deliver those sorts of people. I always say that the average car club member looks after his cars better than he looks after his wife. And they're the sort of people we want, because even if they've got a collection of cars, they will look after their daily drives in the same way. It's a badge of honour, isn't it? If you have an accident, that really you don't want that blot on your logbook, sort of thing.
Very true. Yeah. What's the quickest from paying for their insurance premium to having an accident? I wonder what the quickest that's ever been.
It was less than an hour, and it happened about 6 months ago. I can't remember what it was now. I've got a feeling it was an Aston, and a guy literally, rung us up, added the Aston to his policy, and as he drove out of the garage, he had the accident. Which is really sad, isn't it? He'd probably be really excited to get his new car, and then the accident occurs. But that car, was just taken straight back into the garage, and it was dealt with. The guy was hugely embarrassed, but that's just life. Whether it happens an hour after you've taken the policy out or 365 days further on, nobody goes out to have an accident, do they? No sense to go out to have an accident. So,
does make you wonder, doesn't it? If he's had the whack in the garage and thought, better ring up Lockton's and just add it onto the policy, and then call back in an hour and say, "Oh, me again." That's unfortunate.
Comment. As I said, we trust our insureds.
Yeah.
Actually, one thing I'm curious to ask is, how much theft do you see these days with modern cars? Because obviously they're full of electronics and gizmos. I mean, is theft still a thing on the more modern stuff, or is that kind of a thing of the past?
So theft is interesting. So we can put it into sort of a number of groups. So Range Rovers, Discoveries, all that good stuff. I think it was pretty well documented in the press. These cars were just being stolen to order. A lot of Eastern European gangs involved. These vehicles were, they're stolen in West London, straight in a container, and they're out the country, or broken into bits and out the country. There's parts of Eastern Europe that you can go into, and these cars will be driving around with English plates on.
Good.
But if you want to go into Albania and recover a car, good luck. So you've got all of that sort of stuff going on. So once they'd sorted out West London, these guys moved down to Brighton and that area and started stealing them there. So at one point, Range Rovers, you couldn't insure them.
Wow.
The modern hypercar, very rarely do you see them being stolen, because they're so recognisable. But what we have seen an increase in is theft of classic cars.
Yeah, interesting.
It's not huge, but there's most certainly, I think if you're an Eastern European gang or any sort of gang, if you're criminality, are you going to run drugs and prostitution, or are you going to go and steal a classic car? The penalties for drugs and prosecution are far higher than stealing a classic car. So, we have seen an uptick in classic cars being stolen. We had a
do they reappear, or do they just disappear into nowhere?
Well, we had a 550 Barchetta that was stolen a couple of years, 3 years ago. A really difficult situation. It was an aggravated burglary. So the criminals had broken in, beaten people up, threatened them, had the keys away, stole the car, and we paid the loss. And And then a number of months later, the police got involved. These were professional criminals, for want of a better term, and they eventually recovered the cars. So that car became the property of the insurance company. We gave the client the option. He could give us the money back and take his barchetta. He chose to keep the money, and then the car was actually sold, and the insurance company recovered their outlay. So theft is, we don't tend to see it right at the top end, the real hypercars. And part of that's because how they're protected. If we've got a £1 million, £2 million, £3 million car, it's going to have all the electronics. It'll have trackers on it. It'll be in secure storage probably. A lot of these cars never do any mileage. They're just in secure storage. A lot of these guys will be, they'll be global sort of type of people. So they're moving around the world, and it's a call to the storage company to say, look, I'm going to be in the UK for these 2 weeks. Get the car ready for me. I'll pick it up at Heathrow. So those cars, we don't tend to see too much theft at that end. But Range Rovers and classics, we see it.
That's me stuff then.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not looking good, is it, Joe?
Yeah. Changing subject slightly. I was wondering, as you get older, when does it get to the point where car insurance starts going up? The reason I ask this is because my father's insurance seems to be going up and up each year. I just wondered what I've got to look forward to.
So the market generally is okay with people up to about 75.
Yeah.
I guess once you get to 75, nobody out there is really looking to compete for that sort of business.
Right.
And that's where the problem occurs. Now, we will insure people. We've got people in their 90s that we insure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will insure people who are over 75. So if it's a club member comes to us, but what we tend to look for is a reason. If they're insured in a good market and the price is reasonable, we often will say to people, you're better off staying with your existing insurer rather than changing to us.
Hopping around, yeah.
Because once it's the continuity. They're insuring you. There's a whole thing around the Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, treating customers fairly, and they don't like it when insurance companies say to an individual, just because of your age, we don't want to insure you.
Yeah.
So once you've got the cover, then just keep it rolling on. There might be times when people are over 75, they join the club, they buy Porsche or whatever they buy, and they want to access the scheme because of the benefits of the scheme. So we're always looking for a reason to insure those sorts of people. But I can tell you now, we insure the Bentley Drivers Club, and some of those guys are getting up there. So we're happy to do that because these guys will hardly ever drive their car. They won't drive it at night. They look after their car. So they're, most of the time they're good risks. Yeah.
Just, I was just wondering, can we just while we're on there, can we flip back to the track days quickly? Because I run a little Cayman, road going track car with a friend of mine, and we kind of have this same little debate each year. Do we just take road risk on it and just risk the car between the two of us on track, or do we plump up the extra and go for some track cover? I mean, is it? Do you see on the track side of things? I know you touched on it. Obviously, people do bump them, but I mean, is it well worth the effort? Do you think to go for that extra and make sure that it is actually insured on track? I mean, when you're talking lower values of cars as opposed to the top end stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so if, I assume the car's road registered. So
road going Cayman.
Cayman. Yeah. So if you want to go and insure your Cayman, I don't know, what is it, 10,000 maybe?
Yeah, it's probably it's probably worth about 15, something like that. Plus, it's had I don't know, 5 or 6 grand of bits on it. So something along those lines.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to go and insure that car for a single track day, to cover damage to that vehicle. There are markets that will do it. They don't give you any liability cover. They would just cover damage to the car with a 10% excess. So if it's a £20,000 car, you've got to pay the first £2,000 if it's written off. And they will probably want to charge you around about £500, anywhere from sort of 350 to 500 is what they want to insure you. So people look at that and say, well, that's a set of tyres. I don't really want to spend 500 quid. What I would recommend is, you've probably got a few other cars as well. If you came to Lockton and you insured your other cars with us, and you insured the Cayman, we would give you track day cover, and it wouldn't cost you anything because we don't charge for it. The only issue you've got is if you want to do track days that aren't, if you like, Porsche Club track days. We will do other track days, but we want to know about them. So there's some good operators out there, Gold Track, people like that. We will insure cars on those sorts of track days. The sort of track day that we don't like is where you've got it's an open pit lane, it's undifferentiated. So you might have a guy with a 50,000 decent car that he wants to take on track to enjoy, and then you've got somebody with a £2,500 Ford Fiesta screaming around. So the mentality is completely different, and so we're never too sort of worried about our own insured because we know him. It's the other guys that are on track at the time, and we've all seen some of the stuff that goes on at those sorts of track days, and it can be difficult.
To be honest, I don't think you want to be at those sorts of track days. Yeah, if you've got a half decent car, do you? I mean, it all generally goes a bit wrong quite quickly. And
you'll get the racers going to those sort of track days. They're shaking down their cars. These are quick cars. I've got a mate of mine who's got a TVR. He basically run over a load of 7 at Brands Hatch going down paddock. The speed differential was so great. And the sight lines so difficult. We like well-run track days. We like club track days because we know they're well run. What we don't like is those sort of undifferentiated open pit lane. Anything goes. They're difficult. And
then you
or Nürburgring.
I can imagine not many insurers do.
No, you won't get cover for Spa or Nürburgring.
With some of the club days, I mean, the only other concern that we've had before where we've done, particularly some of the Porsche days, is you can get somebody who's never been out on track before, like you said, might have actually only recently bought their car. I mean, there was someone that comes to mind, one of the last days we went on, and it was a Cabriolet 911. They'd just bought the 911 and they thought it'd be fun to join the club and fun to do a track day. And alongside them out there on track is all the latest stuff. There was a whole host of GT3 RSs. We were running around in our Cayman that was quite track focused. And again, speed differences on track were vast. And that almost became quite dangerous, I thought. I mean, do you ever see any of that sort of stuff going on?
I mean, we don't run the track day. That's the first thing.
Of course.
That's down to other people. But we recognise that. So why do we insure people on track? So we insure people on track because it gives them an outlet to use their vehicle, in the way that it was designed. High-powered, fast cars, and to a certain extent, that teaches people how to drive their cars. So, there is an element of safety and experience around driving, whatever car it might be, on a track so that you understand the limits of that car. I often think that some of the best track days is where they actually split the people up into, the novices and the experienced, or some sort of separation. Because if you're a new guy to the track, and like this guy was, he wants to enjoy his car, but what he doesn't want is some great big GT, race car hurtling towards him, because he's going to panic. And I think you're right. He can do some silly things and become unsafe. I think, and we've got to we've got to work this one through. Normally, when we give people track day cover, we ask that on the first time that they go to the track, they sit with an ARDS instructor.
That's good. Yeah,
and what we're asking for there is the instructor to make certain that he's safe, not that he's quick. But of course, I think the way that track days are going to work going forward is that there's no passengers. So we haven't quite worked out how we deal with the complete novice who's never been on track. How do we confirm that he's safe? And we haven't worked that one through yet. It's one of the things we've got to look at.
Have you heard any other COVID, post-COVID differences or way there's plans with running track days yet?
Yeah, I think there's no spectators that are going to be allowed. There's obviously distancing, hygiene, no food. So they are following government guidelines and advice, and I don't think it's not going to be the same, but it does mean that you can get out on track. So that's what I'm hearing anyway. But I think PCGB have got a track day 7th, 8th, something like that of June. So next Monday, Tuesday, something like that anyway.
That must be their first one, I'd imagine, isn't it?
Yeah, first one. So I think everybody's quite excited. I think they've got Goodwood coming up as well. So I think it's going to follow the standard social distancing that the government have put out. There'll be lots of hand sanitizers and masks, I guess.
David, it's brilliant to chat to somebody within the industry, because the three of us were saying before you joined us on air tonight that insurance is difficult every year, and it's almost a pain to have to sort out. But if you find the right company, kind of regardless of who that may be, it allows you to indulge in your passion more rather than have it hinder your passion. And equally on that side of things, it's nice to hear from somebody candidly inside the industry that can just kind of shed a little bit of light, give us some information, and share some anecdotes as well. And I hope people at home have kind of valued your time tonight as much as we have. So thank you very much for joining us on Road to Redline.
That's great. It's been good chatting with you guys.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it, David. Some really good insight there, definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Spot on. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
What did you guys make of that then?
Interesting. It shows how much a specialist insurance company does for you, doesn't it? More than you think. I know I'm with a Classic Line, and they do some nice things with track days and stuff like that, and they seem pretty good. It's interesting to hear what Lockton's doing. I'm sure the other sort of specialists do the same sort of thing.
I think biggest takeaway from Lockton specifically was I think their any car cover is got to be worth a considerable amount on the policy, and the fact you can drive anyone else's car fully comp and anyone else can drive your car fully comp, I think is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's
really.
pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, huge.
Massive. It was interesting what you were saying about car thefts, wasn't it? And he was kind of able to pinpoint some of the specific models that get it bad, like Range Rovers and stuff. And
they're awful, aren't they?
Yeah, I had a friend where the exact thing happened, actually. He was selling a Range Rover, some chap who he thought he was getting on really well with him, etc., etc. They went for a test drive. It was around the Reading area, and they pulled into an industrial estate. The guy asked to drive the car. So my friend got out the driver's side, stupidly came out, walked around the back of the car.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the guy just hopped over the seat and then bolted it in his Rangy, and it was long gone. And the police said at the time, basically it's off to another country, and you're very likely not going to see it again.
Jeez.
So it does happen, doesn't it? But very interesting with regards to those specific models, and definitely with regards to classic or thefts of classic cars being on the up. So Joe, I'd get padlocks out, mate.
might get on with that. I thought the track day stuff was good as well, because obviously that's fairly close to home. So we might need to have a rethink on our cover and our policy, maybe, because that's it all comes. I suppose it comes down to risk versus cost at the end of the day, isn't it? How long do you insure it for without sort of self-insuring, I suppose, as opposed to let someone else pick up the bill. So we've had a good run, but touch wood, maybe it's time to let someone else take over that burden.
Yeah, I think so. Other news this week, there's another new Targa, isn't it? It's the third one in 3 weeks now.
Yeah, tell us the details on that. I've not seen much. What's so special? Tell us.
Hold on a second. What was the second Targa? Obviously, there's the new 992 Targa. What was the other one I missed?
So they're both 992 Targas. One was the 4, one was the 4S.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I'm with you.
And then this one is the Heritage Design Edition 992 Targa, which is an absolute mouthful, isn't it? But it's from Porsche Exclusive, and there's no upgrades in terms of like power upgrades or anything like that.
So it's just a standard car with some fluff on it, really.
It's like aesthetics and haptics and extra trinkets in that sort of form. I like some of the stuff that they've done. The whole point of this Heritage Design Edition is the fact that it's kind of taking the concept of a modern sports car and employing some retro styling touches to it. The department are going to release 4 such cars over the next 3 or 4 years. The next one's going to be 18 months away. To my mind, that has got to be surely the Sport Classic. It will be 10 years since the Sport Classic was released by then.
I was asking for that.
Yeah, without a doubt. Don't forget as well, in 2023, we've got 50 years, haven't we, of the first 911 Rennsport. So surely that's going to be a surefire addition to it. But the Porsche Exclusive department has yet started with this Heritage Design Edition Targa. It's essentially heritage pack decals, some gold badges, Fouche wheels, the retro badge on the front from the pre-impact bumper days, and then inside green dials, corduroy seat centers, and perforated Alcantara on the roof bar, or the roll bar lining, again reminiscent of the pre-impact bumper days. So a cool touch, but I just feel like Porsche Exclusives used to historically stand for so much more than that. It was special wishes, one of one creations, and it's a little bit lukewarm, isn't it?
It's a bit soft, isn't it? I just think they could have done something more interesting and just gone a bit further with it. I mean, even the whole thing just seems a bit almost like you could just spec that off the sheet normally. I appreciate you can't on all those things, but it's not that far off. It's just kind of a bit of a slightly different spec. Do you think?
I'd agree with it, Joe. Yeah, and I mean the thing is they're making it's a numbered production run, 992 units made. Porsche says 50% of which are estimated to be going to be going to North America. Europe will get 30%. I mean, for me personally, and I don't know about you guys, we know a fair amount of Porsche owners, don't we? Ranging from your one car that's used daily right the way up to kind of serial collectors. I can't really think of anybody that I know who that car would appeal to.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. What's the graphics pack? What does that look like?
It's got the lollipop sticker on the side, a bit like the 991 Speedster, with a number in the middle. You can choose your own number. Porsche script down the sides, and then you've got these. They call them spear-like liveries streaking back from the headlights, like across.
Oh, like the Speedster was.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of it. The colours.
I can't see what that. I don't know. Has the Targa ever had that sort of graphics before?
Well, no. I mean, they were meant to. This Heritage Design Edition, all of these 4 Heritage Design Edition cars that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of years, they're meant to be inspired by different generations of Porsche sports cars. This Targa is kind of catering for the 50s and 60s. So there's a 356/9 early 911 influence, which is meant to be those like that livery. It was on 356s that were raced back in the day.
Yes.
Again, like the cherry red, despite it being a metallic paint, it's meant that this colour was meant to be inspired by 356s from back in the day.
Oh, I have seen a picture of that colour. It does look nice.
Does look a nice colour.
Yeah,
I think
cherry red.
But in again, being metallics is missing the point a little bit again,
True, yeah.
So, like I say, I wonder what type of buyer is going to take that car, because I genuinely don't know
I think we should try and find somebody that's either ordered one or puts an order in for one, and just get a bit of insight. Let's can we find somebody to give us the other side of the story as to what appeals? What are we missing that someone else is appealed to? I suppose.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. I thought it was a fantastic comment on my Instagram page yesterday from somebody that said, regards the lollipop sticker and that on the side, what fully grown person wants a number on the side of their car? Which, I don't know. I think it's cool. I like the concept. What I would have really loved the department to do is to go further and really kind of live up to the heritage of their brand in Exclusive of being a proper special wishes department, and create a special car rather than a mainstream car with add-ons.
That's what it feels like, isn't it? I think they just could have gone so much further, and it would have been so easy just to have taken it that next step where it just could have been, a bit like something like the Speedster, I suppose, or even 911R, isn't it? When you actually get up close and you look at those cars and you look at the differences on those cars, that's what actually makes them special. There's a serious amount of work and effort gone into sort of curating those, don't you think?
Yeah, I do, to be honest, without a doubt. It's
this heritage car's just not in the same league, is it?
No.
It's quite interesting how soon they've come out with that after the launch of the Targa itself. I wonder if that's because was the Targa delayed and it's sort of catching up, or it just seems within like a couple of weeks, isn't it? It's almost like really a special edition already.
Yeah, I think so. I don't quite know. I don't know if the timing of things were changed slightly due to COVID-19, and that kind of messed a little bit with the scheduling.
Maybe, yeah.
So who knows? On the subject of that, we did have a question on our Road to Redline Instagram page earlier on this week. So it's a question for all three of us. I'll put it to you boys now. Yeah. It's from Ducati Ian. He says, a question for you guys. Do you find the sound of a modern supercar as it goes through the soulless auto changes up the box depressing compared to a manual? Especially with their farty sounding exhaust with little engine sound. Just a general question for the podcast. So what do you guys think in terms of like the sound of modern supercars? Are they soulless, do you think?
I think it's just different. I think, is it soulless? No, personally, I don't think it's soulless. I think it's just different. I think it's almost, they're just kind of in their own category, aren't they? I think that noise, you can pick that out, and that's kind of separate, I think, separate to most of the Porsche range, isn't it? I wouldn't necessarily put that as an all-out supercar in the same sort of, I'm guessing what he's talking about is, the big engine, real noisy kind of supercar, hypercar type stuff, which is, it's not everyone's cup of tea. I think maybe that's where the appeal is with Porsche, maybe.
Yeah. Andy?
It's not my bag. I'm not there. Yeah, I hear one go past and I'm like, oh, God.
Yeah, so, I think, maybe not necessarily Porsche, but sports cars generally, whether it's like an AMG or an M car or something, if you close your eyes and one of those drives past you, it's a lot harder to decipher what car that is, isn't it? Whether it's like back in the day, you could be sitting at your desk typing away, a car would whiz past outside and you'd know what it was by the sound, and where kind of there's more of a uniformity to kind of engines and whatnot these days. It is making it harder. I did find the 992 Carreras have been quite vocal about this. I find the 992 Carreras too quiet for my liking, too quiet for a sports car. But I have to say, I was out in the Turbo S 992.
Tell us about that.
Oh, I mean, that sounded brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and that's what the Carreras.
That's what I've heard. Lots of people have said that. Been listening to a few podcasts and things, and people that have driven them, and they've said that it sounds great, which is the first time, really, for a long time that a turbo has sounded good. So
this is it, in the water-cooled era. I mean, the turbo's always had its own soundtrack, hasn't it? It's always been unique,
but always a bit muted.
It is, and especially in the water-cooled generation, that is like the chief argument or criticism that's levied at the turbo is it's really quiet. But Porsche has put a sports exhaust as an optional extra on the turbo now. It's the first time that's happened, and definite difference, and it's got the kind of the boom and the general tone quite similar to a 991 GT2 RS. Not the same volume, certainly, but tonally, it's similar. It's similar to that
Pleasing.
GT2 RS. Yeah, and again, you've got kind of a big car. Its styling is quite aggressive, isn't it? It's obviously 650 horsepower, and it's now, to my mind, it's got the sound to go with like the aggression that the rest of the car is about.
Yeah. Too fast?
I mean, what I will say is the 911 Turbo has been far too fast for the road, not just for years now, but for decades.
True.
So it's an old argument there. It's very, 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 very fast. It's what I'll say to that. It's a great all rounder, isn't it? The Turbo. I can't remember, Joe, if you've had one. I think you had a cab with turbo wheels.
Yeah, cab with turbo wheels. I did. I was lent a Turbo S. Would it be 99? Would have been first gen 991. With it's got the sort of the rubber front splitter that drops down, that sort of thing. That was for a few days for an OPC, and that was, I think I might have mentioned before, that had launch control, which I sort of tested that a few times just to make sure it worked properly, and that was quite impressive.
That's a good point on that car, actually, and I believe Carl mentioned it a couple of podcasts ago for us. That 992 Turbo S cab with the options was £178,000 as an on-the-road price. A 991 Gen 1 equivalent, which I believe is going to be 560 horsepower, and nobody jumps out of one of those and says it's slow. You can pick one of those up for around half the price now. I mean, that just looks like fantastic value for money, doesn't it? As a modern, do-it-all supercar, it's hard to argue against it.
Very true.
Yeah, I mean, that's always unbeatable for the money, isn't it?
Yeah.
What else did the Turbo S have over the standard Carrera? What makes it special? What makes it S? What makes it worth the extra?
Yeah, it's worth the extra Muller. I mean, that's a good question in itself. But in terms of tech, it's a wider body. It's 1,990 millimeters wide now, to bore you with the nitty gritty spec and info. It's the same engine as the Carrera, actually. Obviously, the turbochargers are different. They're much bigger. What else? It's got Sport PASM for the first time on a turbo, as well as PSE. The Turbo is just a different car, and actually, the steering I didn't find as fluid actually as the Carrera 4S. We'll compare it to the 4S because that's obviously four-wheel drive as well.
Yeah.
Still improved over the 991 for sure. That front axle is so much better on the 992 now, isn't it? And we know that. But I just felt it wasn't as fluid as the 4S, and I think that kind of again is where it comes down to it, that the 4S now, in being turbocharged, in being very, very quick, it's been wide body for a while, isn't it? It's really difficult to then go out and say, well, actually, no, I do want the bona fide turbo and take the big step up in price that represents, which is about £60,000 in the UK. Massive.
Yeah. Could you see the difference, obviously where you spent a bit of time on, last couple of days? I mean, could you see 60,000 quid's worth of difference over the 992?
Oh, that's a really good question. I see a difference. I always find it hard to kind of quantify figures because, as far as I'm concerned, like the figures don't mean anything. Like the retail price of a car is irrelevant. People just pay monthly for them these days, don't they?
Quite a bit.
But the engine characteristic is totally different. Whereas the Carrera engine, despite it still being turbocharged, it is a lot more peaky. It does it revs to just past 7. The turbo, the torque band is brutal, but it's smaller. It doesn't rev as high, so there are key differences to it. But it does attract a different buyer, and we have kind of seen that. The turbo really is it's a 911 that is really good at doing everything. There might be other cars within the 911 lineup that do individual things better. But as an all-rounder, that turbo just kind of ticks every box, and I think that's the point.
So it sounds like they've done a good job then. They've turned the wick up, they've turned the volume up. I mean, it's a fantastic car. The thing, and we spoke about it, didn't we, when the turbo was launched a couple of months ago, and we said that, how relevant is the turbo against not only the rest of the 911 lineup in being squeezed from below, but also Porsche squeezing it from above, where their lineup's being electrified.
is the turbo a dinosaur? Well, actually, they're improving the car in terms of performance, but they're also improving it in terms of economy and efficiency. So my personal take on it is that it will probably end up safeguarding the turbo within the lineup, certainly for a few years yet.
Yeah. Good.
So, yeah. Any other business, guys?
Don't think there is.
I'm good.
Coolio. Okay, well, we've got a couple of really cool guests coming up. We've also got a couple of panelists due in as well, because we enjoy chatting to panelists. We consider them our friends, and we've had some really good feedback from people listening at home that the panelists are going down well. So we've got lots of both varieties coming up, haven't we?
Absolutely. Keep the variants.
Brilliant. Until next time on Road to Redline, we shall catch you soon.
See you soon, guys.
See you later.
Bye.